Okay. Welcome back. This is English 371, Week 5, Part 1. Okay. I can hang of this. Um, for me, it's still the same, like, 24-hour period from all 5 weeks. It's a different day. It's like this light outside because I made the first 4 weeks in one day, and now it's the beginning of the next day. Okay. Welcome back to class. We're gonna finish Macbeth. We're pretty much done with this thing. We're gonna wrap it up today. I think today's got to be the last day of Macbeth. I don't know. I think there's probably other people who would teach Shakespeare and they would give you like 8 plays to read and then they would quickly talk about each one for like. I guess there's other teachers who would give you like 7 Shakespeare plays and spend 2 weeks on each one. You can see at this point, having spent a month with my nonsense, that like what I do, but I get real into there. I really want to like sit there with the lines. I think the easier way to teach Shakespeare is to give students like 7 plays, and then be like, oh, the language is too hard to understand, and then you sit around and be like, man, it was really when Macbeth decided to kill King Duncan, that was a bad idea. What would you have done in that situation? Like, I don't know. Um, it's the poetry, man. I'm real into poetry. I think that's probably the difference between me and other teachers is that I think I'm unusual even in the English department as a person who likes poetry. Like I think most teachers who teach 201, for example, do it with like mostly short stories, on the idea that that's what students like to read more than anything else. Um, but I don't teach what students like to read. I teach what I like to read. And on the one hand, that seems like it would be bad. Don't you want to teach what the students want? But then I think people notice how much I give a shit about this stuff, and then they're like, this class is better actually because Professor Clark actually cares about this stuff. All right, I don't know. Anyway, Macbeth. Um, okay, let's do some other stuff. Yeah. Okay, let's wrap this up. I'm gonna start out today by talking about a completely dumb thing for just like 30 seconds. It is not very interesting. The last page of the play, the final page. Just in case you think Shakespeare's gonna back off of his basic themes for a hot second, this is like 30 lines from the end of the play. Um, and they're talking about this guy Seward. It's a little. I realize again, Seward is one of these guys like Lennis Ross, Caithness, and Menteith that like I don't know who these motherfuckers are. They're just people. Seward is somebody within the army that's invading Scotland. Seward's part of the force helping Malcolm retake the throne. He's some guy. I don't know. I don't even really care. Um, uh, I know a lot of people who think that intelligence, a lot of my friends actually, I know a lot of people who think that intelligence consists of being able to remember a lot of trivia. And I'm not, I mean, I guess if you're good at it, if you're good at remembering a lot of trivia, then that makes sense that that's how you would define being smart. I'm not really sure that that is intelligence. I mean, it's a kind of intelligence. It's good if you can remember a lot of trivia. I'm not sure. I feel like there might be more to it than that. And I'm not good at remembering trivia. And I fucking hate trivia competitions because I lose every time. And every time I lose, people go, Jeff, didn't you go to Oxford? How did you get that question wrong? Aren't you a Shakespeare guy? How come you don't remember who Seward was? Like, I don't know. Fucking Seward. Who gives a shit about that guy? Anyway, Seward is in the invading force, and his son dies. Macbeth. There's actually a scene where Macbeth kills Seward's son on stage. It's a moment. Sometimes it can be played for comedy. Because Macbeth is sort of slaughtering people, because even though some of the prophecies are starting to fall apart, like the Birnam Wood has come to Dunsinane or whatever, um, he still keeps remembering that the witch has said, "No man of woman born can harm you," and so he feels invincible. Because he's like, and so he acts like it on the battlefield. And he was dangerous before, but now that he thinks he's completely unbeatable because he's protected by fate, he's even worse because he'll just like charge in like a lunatic and not even worry about getting hurt because he's like, I'm gonna live forever. And they start. And so there's a scene where he meets Seward, a young Seward's the dad, young Seward is the son, and he meets this kid who like stands. He's like, it's a kid, and he stands against him, and Macbeth just stabs him in the face and is like, "Thou was born of woman," ha! Because nobody of woman born can harm him, and since this kid was born of woman, because according to Macbeth's thinking, everybody is born of a woman, because he misunderstands the prophecy, and he just stabs the kid, and he just stabs him and goes, "Thou was born of woman," and then he just turns around and starts killing other people. It's often played for laughs in movies. It's pretty entertaining. Um, okay, yeah. Um, so at the end of the play, Seward shows up, and his son is dead, and Ross, who's one of those guys that I can never fucking keep straight, Ross says, "I can't tell you something." I'll say this about being intelligent. I'll say this. I feel like a key thing is that people think intelligent people know everything. But actually, I feel like a key bit about getting smarter, some of it is like learning thing, like knowing more stuff. But a big part of getting smarter is realizing like what's not that important. Like there are things you don't need to know. Like it's fine. Like I get it. If you're a person who just needs every answer to every question, good for you. But like I could look up who Ross Casenith's meant. I don't even know if I can say that guy's name. I don't think they're important to this play. Like I think some students are like, oh, Professor Clock knows Shakespeare. He'll definitely know who Ross is. Like he's one of the guys that's invading with Malcolm's army. Whatever. Um, Okay. I just think I went to this restaurant once with somebody and they were younger and they were sort of nervous about not being, I don't know, fancy enough to be at this sort of fancy restaurant, even though it wasn't that fancy. Um, but the student we were looking at the menu and they had like rosewater pancakes. The student turned to me and was like, this is a student who'd graduated that was friends with my wife. And I shouldn't call her a student because she wasn't a student at the time. But the young woman was like, I don't even know what rosewater pancakes are. And she sort of looked at me, and I was like, I also don't know what rosewater pancakes are, but I also don't think I need to know. Like, I'm whatever. I'll order it. We'll see what it tastes like. Like I think her idea was that I knew what it was, and she didn't. But it was actually that like I didn't feel like I needed to know what it was. Like I didn't. It didn't seem important to me. Um, all right, let's take a look at this. So young Seward dies, and Ross says to old Seward, your son, my lord, has paid a soldier's debt, because a soldier owes his country his life, and he's died, he's given his life. Your son, my lord, has paid a soldier's debt. He only lived but till he was a man, the which no sooner had his prowess confirmed in the unshrinking station where he fought, but like a man he died. Like there again, you see Shakespeare's obsession. Not obsession, but when Shakespeare has an idea, it goes through the whole play. Um, Ooh, do I want to give a good example of someone not doing that? This is probably a really bad example I shouldn't use. I'm going to do it anyway really fast, and you can just skip. You know what? If you haven't seen Game of Thrones, you can just skip to the next video, but I'm going to say this really fast. So Shakespeare, when he has a thought, he puts it all through the play. So if he's thinking about masculinity and toxic masculinity and gender roles, it's on every page somewhere. Even minor characters you don't give a shit about, like the porter and young Seward, are somehow also talking about masculinity because that's what Shakespeare does. When he has an idea, it's reflected in all parts of the play. It's what makes his plays so satisfying because everything makes sense and is connected. Um, Game of Thrones did this thing in the middle of it's like a fantasy series with swords and wizards and shit. But Game of Thrones did this thing where right in the middle of the story, they just randomly slaughtered a whole bunch of the main characters. And it was like, holy shit, that's crazy. But it felt realistic because in the real world, heroes can just be killed randomly at any point. Anybody can walk up to them and shoot them in the head. In movies, that doesn't happen. The main character tends to make it to the end of the movie. Or if he dies, it's like a heroic death. But these people all just got fucking axe murdered just out of nowhere. And it was like, whoa, this is not your normal fantasy series. But then at the end of the series, they had this thing where all these monsters were attacking. And one character was able to kill the leader of the monsters, at which point, just a moment before the monsters were about to kill everybody, all the monsters exploded all at once, because when you kill the leader, all the monsters die. And it was just like, that's a very normal fantasy thing to have this stupid thing where you kill one dude and all the monsters everywhere all explode and die, and you're here and you end up saving like 6 different people in different locations by killing the monster at the exact right second. Those are 2 very different kinds of stories. You can tell a story where you can save everyone at the last conceivable moment and it's really exciting and the audience cheers, and you can tell a story where it's like realistic in the sense of being brutal, and all the heroes randomly die. But you can't do both. Like, pick a fucking lane. Shakespeare picks a thing and sticks to it. Game of Thrones felt kind of like disconnected in that way. Like, is the story a very serious version of fantasy, or are we just doing a normal sort of fantasy series like a blockbuster movie, or is it like supposed to be like a very violent, like real world kind of version of it? I don't know. Anyway, I'll pick this up in the next video.